such an intriguing journey into the arts, starting with music as your entry point into the industry, but something about being on a film set truly captivated you. Do you remember what made that first experience so magical, and how did that eventually draw you back in your mid 30s?
Well, I was playing music at the time, so I was pretty much into my own head and into my own self there, it seems, but being young and impetuous. But the first time I stepped on a film set was in Vancouver, Stargate SG-1. And I've never been on a film studio before or anything else like that. So when I walked onto the set, I was just like, wow, this is pretty wicked. Like everything looked real, like the costumes, like just the whole machine as it was moving and playing out was unbelievable to me. But I never really thought about acting back then, which
Mhm.
is funny. Like, and people said you should be an actor, you should be an actor. And I was, so into myself. I was like, I'm a musician, I'm a musician. I'm like, can't you see that? Stubborn, right? I guess. But what drew me back to it in my 30s was, like I said, I was, sitting in, I got back into my cultural roots and stuff, and I was literally, uh, you know, 3 months behind on my rent, sitting in my apartment, broke. And I had a number that I could call, and I had to get to Calgary, and I could be working in the oil fields, making 10 grand a month, doing whatever. Or I had this other number that I could call, do background work on this show called
Mhm.
To the West that was shooting. So I've always, maybe I'm just kind of a dummy in a way, but I've always just kind of chosen the hard thing. Most people would have went, for the easy cake, right? But to me, I was like, no, this would be a job it's just a means to an end, and I would just can't stand doing it, and I'm not into that. So I'm going to try this and see what this is about. Because I recalled what happened in Vancouver, and I was like, okay, maybe if I could just get on a film set, maybe I could find out if there is something there for me to do.
You followed your heart, which I think is
Yeah.
so important. Yeah, such an important lesson for audiences. I think so much of what you do as a storyteller and an actor is you're bringing truth to your characters, drawing from your own experiences and processes. Since you began in music, how much does that medium influence the way that you step into a role?
I think for me, playing music, being live performance, it's kind of one and the same thing. You can't go on to stage playing music and be half 50% there or under the weather. You have to give 100%.
Mm.
And that's being genuine to what you're doing. And it's kind of like I see it as an energy exchange. Because when I was playing music, I was working at a day job and like as a laborer and a masonry laborer of all things. And so I'm just wiped out by the end of the day. And then I have to go pound on drums for the next, hour and a half. And but it was like I was always tired going on stage. And then the second I got on stage, I came alive. And it's like the more feel the audience
Mm.
giving, the more you want to give back. And that's how I look at acting. I'm self-taught as an actor. I probably shouldn't say that, but I am. But get eaten alive for that one. But that's how I see it as an actor. I see it as a game of catch, like so to speak. So you have to give just as much as you're receiving at all times, and then it becomes like this effortless game where you don't even have to look at each other, and you
Mhm.
already know where the ball is, and it's just effortless. It's like an exchange going back and forth, and you have to be rooted in truth, I believe, to be genuine. And like maybe out there in the audience, they don't really know what's wrong with a performance technically, but they just know they don't believe it, and that's why they say, it's really bad acting. They couldn't
Mm.
tell you why. They just know that they don't believe it for whatever reason. So I think for me, it's like that's how I transfer that, if I answered that question, into
Yeah,
my role, is
that's such
sitting
a
and
great. Yeah.
being authentic.
Yeah, that's such a great point about what you were saying about energy earlier and just kind of feeding off your scene partner or the cast and the crew. And you're somebody who's consistently used your platform to celebrate different perspective and voices that are often underrepresented in mainstream media. And I really admire your belief that if you want to make change, you have to be that change. But it's inspire you to create Secret History. Can you tell us a little bit about this series, the stories and people that you're highlighting, and how it's evolved from season one into season two?
Okay. So yeah, Secret History was it's an idea that, it was a project idea that was a combination of two different projects that I was working on at the time, like a long time ago. And it was based on all these historical figures, that I grew up learning about, but not in school. I grew up learning about from old people and listening to
Mm,
stories and stuff. And one or two of them were touched on in school, but I never could figure out why they never really went into any great detail. Like this isn't the versions that I heard. Uh, and there's also metaphysical element to it, like sort of a mystical element to it. So I wanted to put these two things together to make a documentary series that would, showcase these things from an indigenous perspective, like from the way that I was learning about these people. And it's, I guess you could say, the series is basically that's what it is. It's like an indigenous perspective. And the more I got into the research, and listening to the speakers and the elders that talk, that's where the real secret history lies, is with the
mm,
things that they're bringing to light. And a lot of it's uncomfortable truths, granted. History's, it's a bloody mess and ugly, but it's also needs to be presented out there. And the show is designed in a way because it's told through the eyes of the trickster, who I play. And it's just a storytelling catalyst to sort of let the steam off and, let the air out, when people are feeling uncomfortable, and sort of set the tone and pace of how to feel, and that it's okay. So it's not so much to point fingers or anything else like that, because I believe that doesn't get anywhere. It's
yeah,
just a way to sort of open the door and let a little bit of fresh air in, so to speak. If that makes sense. And so, yeah, season one focused on primarily these male figures, and season two totally focuses on just female Indigenous figures to bring them to light. Because let's face it, in history, the saying is, behind every great man is a better woman, and it's true. But women are just so swept under the rug, historically. It's unbelievable. And especially Indigenous women, like from one of the elders told me, like, frontier wives were the reason why all these intrepid explorers were able to survive out here. And a frontier wife is an Indigenous woman they took on so they could survive, and then just abandoned them when they went back home to their real families. So I wanted to bring that definitely out into the light. And season three just takes a whole new different turn again. Like they're all standalone episodes, and each season is kind of contained within itself for the story. And season three will be talking about lore and legends, or what conventional history
mm,
calls mythology. And sure, there's stories that we were told that are for entertainment purposes, but our mythology is like a record of events,
yeah.
if you want to talk about it. So it's to kind of put the two together and bring out a different perspective on maybe on our human origins of how we believe that came to be. Just interesting stuff, I guess.
Definitely. And your use of humor and is also so brilliant. How did you find the balance of kind of incorporating humor, which I think makes it more digestible when exploring a lot of these hard truths as you were talking about?
It's funny because, thank you for the compliment. Um, it's funny going back to the first season. I never ever thought of myself to host a show like that, because I was trying to build my acting career.
Mm,
And, I didn't want to host a documentary series because that would take me out of acting jobs, potentially I could get. And, a colleague of mine that I was working with, she pushed me. She said, "No, you're the person to host this show. You got to find a way to make it interesting." So for me, how can I make it interesting is kind of being a goofball. So I'm going to play a character within the story, a jester, a trickster, a joker. That's going to deliver you information, but if there needs to be something cruel or something happen to you, it'll happen to me. So then
mm,
it's doing anything. I'll be the butt end of the joke, so to speak. So for me, I have fun with it. Like I just have fun and I follow my instincts. And there's a house I present something. I've always had a sense of humor, I guess, throughout my life. I've kind of had to have a sense of humor, and I just use it, I think, instinctively, and rather than consciously. It's not a conscious effort how I deliver stuff, so
mm.
it just happens.
Yeah,
So
it's all yeah, authentic to you. And it's actually a perfect segue to this next question, but you're also no stranger to working behind the scenes with several writing and producing credits. I find it so interesting how the industry has shifted now, where in the past, if you were an actor, you could just be an actor, but like now we're really celebrating kind of having that multifaceted career, having had those experiences behind the camera, how they impacted the way that you now approach your work as an actor and vice versa.
I think it definitely helps me, like for sure. Like writing, directing, and producing, excuse me, gives me a bunch of different perspectives when I look at a character. I mean, I still read the character for what's, what it is, but I'm also taking into consideration different elements too. And on set, I think it makes me sort of an autonomous actor. Like I always joke about, like, when I work with other people sometimes, like there's those who like to wander off and do stuff, and it's got to be in their own world. But it also makes me, I really understand the collaboration of what it takes between the people, directing the show, the producing the show, even the crew, like, hey man, is it okay if we stick a light right in the middle of your path here? And I'm like, sure, I'll navigate that. And I understand what you're doing here. Like everything is here to
Mhm.
help you and make you look good and to help tell the story. So work with it, be malleable, right? And as far as the story, when I read a script now, it really, I see it from above. Hopefully, if I can, the best that I can. I'm not the showrunner or writer, but I could see that world and I respect it. And I just find my place and go, this is my part in the story, and this is how I fit into it.
Mm.
So
Yeah, beautifully said. And outside of Secret History, we're gonna see starring in one of the most highly anticipated shows, I think, of the fall, NCIS Origin. Were you a fan of the original franchise before this project came across your desk? This has been a very tight-lit project. What can you tease about your character? What you were most excited about playing him?
okay, well, NCIS Origins, for sure. I mean, it is a monster show. It is a monster franchise. I've caught episodes periodically of the original throughout the years, and then there's so many offshoots that you try and watch, and then this time just takes over. But I'm well aware of what a huge monster of a show it is, and it's such a privilege to be part of it, first of all. They selected little old me to play this role, which I thought for sure it was a long shot. Like when my agent sent me
Hmm.
it, I was like, ah, this is a long shot, but I'll give it a read anyways, because the material looked really great. Um, and just it's NCIS. I mean, it's like, somebody said, hey, do you want to read for a Stormtrooper number 88 in Star Wars? You bet. I'm there. Right. So to be part of a show like that, and what really was what really I says got me excited about it, it was a chance to play an indigenous character that was in such nuances that it wasn't, they didn't lean on it or anything else like that. He just had this remarkable position, and I was like, oh my god, this is like so great. Like
Mm.
how many times you get cast as like the chief pathologist of this, the whole, you're the boss of the whole, all the pathologists. You know what I mean? This is great. And not to mention your pals and best buds with Mike Franks. You know what I mean? There's this wicked camaraderie. That's right. You guys are tight, and there's a mutual respect, and it's like this is going to be awesome. So happy to be here and happy to be along the ride for as long as they'll have me.
Yeah. You're not giving yourself enough credit. Speaking of those nuances, it's also been shared that your character has a complicated past, which allows you to explore his vulnerabilities. As an actor, how did you create that space for yourself to tackle those kind of more emotionally driven scenes and those different layers?
I To do it authentically, I think you have to draw on, for me, I have to draw on my own personal experiences that are similar to it. Uh, the only thing you can't draw on is like, like what's it like to die? I don't know what it's like to die, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you have to for me, I have to go into the closet of the dark things, I guess, and root around in there and kind of hang out in there for a while and let these words follow me and this and the the character follow me and see where it brings me to. And a lot of that is it's draining. It's draining. I mean, the first time I ever played a character that was I was brutal on set. Like, I was belligerent and a walking nightmare and just cruel and violent to people. And I went out for one scene and then I was like, I'm just exhausted at the end of the day. And it was, kind of an acting mentor of mine, Sean Johnston, who said that's because you have to give that energy out to be believable. And it's just
Yeah.
like having an argument, you're drained after. So how I get into that mind space is I don't know, I guess I'm at a point in my life where I'm lucky enough, I just kind of can drop into it.
Mm.
I'm past the age of, worrying about what other people think, I guess. So I'm okay with exposing myself and being vulnerable. It's never an easy thing. But it's what my job is to do to be believable in order to tell an honest story to the viewer and to give as much as I possibly can to the production that's employed me.
That's a beautiful sentiment that you just said about having the words fall on you. And you've also said in previous interviews that characters and roles like this don't typically come across your path. And for somebody living in this time period, he would have had such a hard journey to get where he is. But it's also the responsibility of media to highlight these different walks of life because they do exist. What's that collaboration been like with the writer's room to bring that authenticity to screen? What have you learned about your own craft getting to play this character?
What I've learned about my own craft and getting to play this character. First of all, like with the media, I think is, they're paying attention to it now, and
Yeah.
it's extremely important thing because in order to play diverse characters in nuanced ways, we have the chance to foster a cultural tapestry that can create significant change in society. If that makes sense. Like seeing is believing, you know what I mean? And to show diverse characters as complex and layered and we're more than, as to use indigenous, for example, more than just leathers and feathers, like in Westerns and stuff. We can be doctors, lawyers. We are doctors and lawyers and
Yeah.
teachers, judges, and et cetera, et cetera. So, and it's a benefit to anybody who chooses to see that because it allows them to build authentic storylines, authentic narratives that people, it doesn't matter what walk of life you're or what race you are, you're going to identify with that character, because they have flaws, they have ups and downs and everything else. And for myself as a writer, that's one of the reasons why I started writing, I guess. I don't really consider myself a brilliant writer or anything, but I knew that it would give me back when I started, it would give me the power to put in the driver's seat who I want.
Hmm.
So if I want an indigenous person front and center, I can make that happen. Or if I want an Asian girl front and center, I can make that happen. I can make her the hero of the story. I can make her a brilliant physicist if I want. And nobody can stop me. So, and it's by able to do that, you can change the face of diversity within the industry itself. And it's a slow change. It's happening right now, but more and more people are taking note. And I think, I have to throw this out there. I think it starts with, the sort of the father of all, the bigger people like the networks or whatever to
Hmm.
start bringing in, they might be younger, inexperienced writers that are ethnically diverse writing room, but still put them in the room because as a experienced Caucasian writer, you are never going to be able to speak into a situation or a life experience like let's say yourself can or somebody else of an
Yeah.
ethnicity. You're never going to have that perspective. So you're only smart to put people like that in the room to make it believable.